Good afternoon, everyone. So we reached the business end of the US Open. It is the climax for both the women's and the men's tournament. And today I am going to preview the women's final that's going to start in a couple of hours. I'm really pumped up about this one. If you think about two form players, the form player of the summer of the last month, Karolina Pliskova, and the form player of this year's Grand Slams, Angelique Kerber, who's making her third Grand Slam final. In itself, it feels like a big step for the WTA Tour because, after all, I can't remember the last time we had someone reach three Grand Slam finals other than Serena. So it shows a level of consistency that's been missing on the WTA tour. Of course, for another day, we'll discuss how Kerber can maintain this going forward into next year as well. But for a start, it's great to see such consistency. Two, maybe some may say this is a surprise final, but if you look at the form of both players this past month, it really isn't. Pliskova, of course, won the Cincinnati final. Kerber made the finals at the Olympics and the finals at Cincinnati. So there's a lot to look forward to in this match. Let's start taking a look at the breakdown of this game. So as we can see over here, Kerber and Pliskova have played 7 times. Kerber leads the head-to-head 4-3. Interestingly enough, the last 3 meetings have all been finals. Last year, they played 2 finals, one in Birmingham on grass and one on Stanford on the hard courts, and both of them were really amazing 3-set battles. In fact, I remember quite clearly that in Birmingham, Kerber won the last set in a tiebreak, and then in Stanford, it was a 6-4, very close third set as well. Interestingly enough, the last final that they played this year, and this was just 3 weeks ago in Cincinnati, Pliskova won quite comprehensively 6-3, 6-1. So will this have any bearing? We'll have to see. It's going to be a different occasion. It is a Grand Slam final. It's Pliskova's first, Kerber's third, and third this year. So let's see how the mentality of both players plays in. Now, looking at some key stats to get an understanding of how this game might play out, I wanted to first assess how both players have played this Open. And in the final, of course, serve is key. So if we look at first serve percentages, there you see Kerber is at 64.22, very impressive, very steady, and Pliskova is 55.16. Now, this may be a bit misleading because, as the next stat will tell you, it's the percentage that you win on it. So Kerber has a very impressive 68.09, but Pliskova dwarfs her completely with 78.81. That is a significant amount of first serve points won. So even though her first serve in percentage is lesser, the fact that Pliskova hits the lines so often, whether she's serving deuce or ad court, whether she's going down the tee or on the sides, she gets the lines a lot, and that's why she wins an amazing amount of points on her first serve. On the second serve points, you can see that Kerber's got the slight edge over there, 50-46. I think Kerber, because of a better defensive technique, can sometimes even withstand an aggressive return. However, Pliskova, her movement is probably her biggest weakness, especially moving out wide, and that's why she's vulnerable on her second serve. And that's why that first serve is so key to Pliskova's game. After all, she is a player with the most aces on the WTA Tour this year. Continuing on the service theme, breakpoints saved. Again, both of them have done actually a really good job. Kerber saved 61%, Pliskova saved 63%. Pliskova, of course, doesn't face as many breakpoints as Kerber, but nonetheless, because of a cool composure and big serve, whenever she does face them, example against Serena, she faced just 2. She saved 1, she lost 1. She's able to come through. Kerber, just her mentality, her toughness enables her to save a lot of breakpoints as well. Now, from the baseline, how do these players stack up? Both players' strong suit from the baseline is the forehand. So Kerber's got 52 forehand winners, and Pliskova's got 66. Pliskova's forehand, as I've mentioned before on the show, is a very unique forehand. Not many players can generate that kind of power despite having a whippy forehand. You know, it's not the classical big swing and big follow through. It's a very whippy forehand, and she generates lots of power, and hence she's got a lot of winners over there, 66. Backhand winners, both of them 26, 24. Now, I think this is an interesting stat because I think today Kerber's going to need her backhand because Pliskova is not always necessarily going to hit to her forehand. She's going to have to get her backhand working. And interestingly, Cliff Drysdale during the semifinal on ESPN made an interesting point that he thinks that Kerber actually has a better backhand than forehand because she can hit it from behind her. And that's something she'll definitely need to do in today's final. Unforced errors, 86 so far in the tournament for Kerber, 126 for Pliskova. Now, that might seem like a big gap, 40 unforced errors. It's not that Pliskova is inconsistent. I think it's Pliskova's margin for error is bigger. She goes to the big shots, she goes to the winners, hence she has those. Whereas Kerber, who's actually a much more solid player, in her last two matches against Wozniacki and Vinci, she's probably had more unforced errors than she would like. So 86 is actually a more alarming number for Kerber than 126 would be for Pliskova. All right, so the risk and reward approach that both players will need in the final, you have to take some risks. Who is the more consistent in that regard? So if you look at net points won, Kerber's pretty solid, 60 points. Although for me, her technique at net isn't necessarily the best. Whereas Pliskova wins 71% of her net points. She's very aggressive, as I've said already, on several counts, on her serve, on her forehand, and she doesn't hesitate to come in and finish points at the net. And she's got quite a good volleying technique. So definitely Pliskova has the edge over there. A breakpoint conversion, surprisingly, actually, sorry, not surprisingly, Kerber's got a very high breakpoint conversion, 54.54, because Kerber can keep running balls. So even when she's up against a player who's got a big serve and is dictating rallies, because of her defensive technique and her ability to run out wide and reach balls, even balls behind her, it is more natural for her to be in an opponent's service game, sometimes even more so than her own service games. Whereas Pliskova is so reliant on her serve, sometimes she is compromised on her return game because she's not the most natural mover, especially when it comes to moving out wide, which is a key facet of returning. So that's why there's a slight difference of 6% between their breakpoint conversion. Now, we also have to look, considering this is following 3 weeks after the Cincinnati final, I thought the stats in this game would be very relevant to the outcome of this match. So, in the first serve percentage, rather surprisingly, despite the scoreline, I think there's some hidden stats over here that should not let Kerber lose too much hope. She had 69% first serves and Pliskova only 52. But again, like our first graph, this is a bit misleading because despite that 69% first serve, Kerber only won 49% of her points because Pliskova was able to dictate with the forehand, whereas Pliskova won a gripping 86% of her first serve points. That's a really impressive margin, despite maybe getting only one of every other serve in. Second serve points won. Pliskova had the edge in this individual battle because she was able to attack Kerber's second serve more often. Kerber, not so much. Breakpoint saved. So Pliskova saved 80% of her breakpoints. Now, despite the 6-3, 6-1 scoreline, I should point out over here that Kerber actually had 5 breakpoints, but Pliskova managed to save 4, and she'll need that sort of mentality to save breakpoints again in the final today. And then finally, breakpoint conversion. Of course, it reverses the breakpoint saved. It's easy to see since Kerber only broke one. She has a 20% and Pliskova at 62%. So, guys, those are some stats from the final that I think are going to have a major impact. We've analyzed both players' strengths and weaknesses throughout the tournament. I'm just hoping that we get to see a really, really good final. You know, if you look at it, both players are in such good form. The expectations are high. You would probably back Kerber just because of her experience and the fact, of course, that she is the new world number 1. But at the same time, there's something about Pliskova. You know, I love her confidence. Even when she beat Serena in the post-match interview, you know, she said unbelievable first and then retracted herself and said, actually, I believe it because I believe when I'm on my best, I can beat anyone. That says a lot about a player. And sometimes that fearless mentality on a final can take you places. Remember, Kerber played a similarly fearless opponent, Monica Puig, who on any given day you'd back Kerber to beat Puig but in the Olympics finals, because Puig played fearlessly, Kerber got more tense and an upset was delivered. So the same thing could easily happen. I'm too afraid to call this one. I just want all of us to enjoy a great tennis match. Most likely, it's going to be played indoors with a closed roof because the weather forecast isn't the greatest. Will that have an effect? I don't know. So it's really experience versus confidence. May the best player win this US Open final.